also, like, when you bulk download all of the submissions from Canvas, you get, basically it's all of the file names but pre-pented with like your name and an ID number. So, so I download all of the submissions, then I'm for looping through the contents of this class list file, which has been pre-processed to match the sort of the thing that the file names are pre-pented with. So I select out the files that are yours out of the submissions thing automatically, fix the file names so that they're the file name they're supposed to be. If you messed the file name up, I put in this little thing. It's like, did they mean this one, or this one? And I just did like 2, and it continues. And I've got it so that it automatically splices your student number, which is extracted from your submissions using grep search and regular expressions, that gets spliced into the URL and loaded up into the browser automatically. And right now I'm working on a thing where I'm also grabbing your copy off of the server inside of the same script, and I'm going to do a diff comparison on the one that you submitted to Canvas. And precisely, yeah, check the Canvas and the CS Unix submissions automatically. You don't even have to look at it.
We were doing all the Linux stuff, and we were just learning about like bash history and diff and all that. So I'm like, I know what that is.
Yes. Anyway, I don't get to program a lot in this job, and that's when I do, I get excited about it.
It seems kind of counterintuitive.
What, bash scripting or
No,
like that process?
No, it's,
Not getting to program very much?
yeah.
Well, most of the time I'm like concerned with grading other people's programming. You know?
We should educate.
Yeah. But such is the life of a pointless academic. So let's oh, we already have.
So in Linux, there's like
Okay, what are the,
the check.
do you have a letterbox or
in the
no?
file has different contents than the other one.
Yeah.
What movies? 300. Okay. I used to watch clips of that movie every single day I could.
But it's still
Pardon?
flagged, but it has
Yeah, the script is only flagging things. Because I don't have an exposed API on Canvas to like send your grades automatically by script to Canvas, or else I would.
I've seen that. Yeah.
I could get everything marked.
The platform is
in,
only
like,
the default
30
thing.
seconds.
Yeah. I like that
No.
one.
But no, I have to do like
I thought it
manual
was like
entry of the
a fun
rubric,
movie.
so.
I thought I wasn't gonna
So
like
it's
it,
flagged
and then I watched it. I was like, it was really fun
Yeah.
to watch. Yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause it was like every
like
level
it'll
was,
tell
like,
you
fun.
what's different too, you
So
know?
the only thing that's different in mine is
I'm
one
gonna
version
say
is true or false, and one version is 0
popcorn.
Yeah,
for my flags.
that's trivial. That's not what it's designed to look for. What it's designed to look for is people who like half completed the assignment and submitted that to Canvas, and then did the rest of the assignment in CS Unix after the due date. That's what it's meant to look for.
I haven't seen that one yet. It's like, Nightcrawler, I've seen that.
But
I like
you know
Nightcrawler.
how in client side
It's
once
like
you're
Jake
supposed
Gyllenhaal,
to
yes,
use
yeah, I like that.
style,
I haven't seen
inline
Enemy though.
styling,
I should though.
you can grep search for
People always
that.
say it's like an underrated, like, huh? Which one? No, I haven't seen State.
Oh yeah.
Oh, really? I haven't seen. I've seen like almost, I'll say like 70% of the movies. I think La La Land, and like Nobody Will Forgive. Those are the 2 movies. I haven't seen like 3 of his movies, and then the one that you just said. People said Nobody. Yeah, I know, but because when he first started, no one like really liked him. Like people didn't think he was like what he was gonna be now, I guess. Because there was like a director that said like he wasn't attractive or something. I don't know, it's crazy.
So, are we recording?
Yeah.
Wonderful. So, today we are going to learn how to upload binary files to a server using PHP and its interaction with the client. client. Just to remind ourselves, what's the difference between a text file and a binary file?
Text is like readable by person, binary is gobbledygook.
Right. Text files are character encoded, so they can be loaded as strings into programming environments. You don't really load a string into a programming language. The language is the thing you use to write the program, and you load it into the program. Also, while I'm on the subject of grammar, you don't write a code. You write a program. Coding is the verb, program is the noun. So you don't say to the prof, hey prof, look at my codes. It's like, no, look at my programs.
What about code singular?
No. See, a piece of code is a part of a program, but the whole program is a program and not a code.
So if a piece of code is part of the program, then I'd say codes.
Well, no. You would say pieces of code. Yeah.
That's good.
Look at my hands.
Precisely. It's like, you know,
That's it.
anyway, that's a pet peeve of mine. So anyway, so binary files include things like PDF files, image files, music files, video files, normally things which require a little bit of compression. In general, if something has been compressed, you can bet a lot of money that it's been binary encoded, because you know, text encoding is a lot fatter than binary encoding for various reasons. So, the way that we send a file to a server is using a POST request. GET requests send information to the server in the URL. Obviously, if we're sending a whole image file, we won't be able to squeeze that into the URL. So we send it by POST. The object of this class is to work up a working example. I know I'm about to load up W3 Schools, and I know it's like, you know, in theory, the type of, I don't want to be the type of professor that just teaches off of W3 Schools, but this is the example that I found that works, so we're going to learn the example that works as opposed to one that doesn't. But we're going to go through it very carefully, and we're going to do it ourselves. Okay. In VS Code. So, when I tested this earlier, for whatever reason, XAMPP didn't work, but CS Unix did. So I'm going to be doing this example using WinSCP and CS Unix directly, rather than using XAMPP. Actually, need that a bit higher. Not that high. My kingdom for a dampener. Too much spring, not enough dampener. So, let's just make a file. Let's put this in documents, I guess. New file. We'll call this index.html. Put that in documents. Might as well put our shebang in there. And, or that's the boilerplate. Shebang is something else. And then upload.php in the same directory. No, shut up. Okay, here we go. Connecting to CS Unix. username, myself, password, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a joke, my password isn't 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So is your password?
Damn.
Damn.
That was also a Spaceballs reference. It's a good movie. So, I have established a directory, fall 2023, S8W6, that is section 8.6, which is us, our location. No, I don't want administrative privileges to open Firefox. I suppose I could do this in Chrome because it's not actually Apple too. Whatever. CS Unix dot slash tilde more slash fall 2023 slash section 8 week 6. Boom. There we go. Dismiss. Good. So, blow that up a little. Is everybody following along? Excellent.
Yeah.
So, the first thing that we need to do is we need to write the client-side code which generates the post request, which the image or whatever file will be included. In theory, you could do some validation checking in JavaScript on the file prior to sending it off through the post request. However, what do we know about the client? What do we never do with the client?
Trust them.
We never trust the client. Someone who was exceptionally clever, or even, averagely clever, could take a look at your exposed JavaScript in the inspector, see the validation checks that you're performing, and, modify them, take them out, send the request anyways. The validation checks that you put in the client, they can help if they prevent the upload of files that wouldn't be right anyways. Like if you're expecting an image file and they try to upload an MP4 or something, it would prevent the post request from being generated and it would save the server the traffic. So it's good on that front. But in terms of protecting the server from, receiving malicious input, it's not gonna be able to do that. Anybody who's clever enough to send you a virus is clever enough to read your JavaScript. So, the way we're gonna do this is just using HTML forms. We're not even gonna do any JavaScript. So let's make a form. Remember, this is a good review of HTML forms actually. Remember the action attribute. The action attribute is where on the server you want this form data to be sent. In our case, we are targeting the PHP script which we are currently writing. Upload.php. Method? Sorry, question? Okay. Our method is post. Method is post because, we already had that conversation. Get versus post. This is post. And then one we haven't seen before, enctype. Stands for encoding type. Multi-part /form data. There we we go. Now, very simply, we want to create an input of type file. Now, we did checkboxes, we did radio buttons, we did slides, we did all of those things, but input type file, that's new. We haven't had, like, the chops to be able to deal with that yet. But now that we know a little bit of PHP, we now have a reason to use the file input. So, input type equals file. Name, let's call it file to upload. ID, short file. Well, let's call it user file, it's a little shorter. Next, we are creating a submit button. Can anybody remind me what a submit button does when it's pressed? What? Yes, it submits, but what does it do mechanically? Well, I mean in JavaScript, yes. When you click the submit button, it refreshes the page, right? What it's that is, please generate for me the type of HTTP response packet that corresponds to this form, right? So that button marshals the data and sends an HTTP packet. You can suppress the reload of the page with this, but given that in our case we don't have anything listening for a response, there's really no point. So we want input type equals submit. Value is upload image. That's the name on the button. And then the name, submit. Submit. All right. There we go. Now, if we upload that using WinSCP, overwrite, and reload. There you have it. Browse ... I'm sure we've all seen those before, considering you've already uploaded an assignment through Canvas. When you click that, it brings up the open file dialog. The open file dialog is like, I don't know if I'd consider it part of the kernel. Maybe you'd consider it part of the kernel. But pretty much, no matter what program is opening the file dialog, they're all opening it the same way using operating system commands. Anyway, so, good. We shall require an image. What's an animal?
Dog.
A dog. It's a little pedestrian, but okay. You know what?
Would you prefer a chameleon?
Pangolin. Pangolins are cool. So, next, let's start in on our PHP script. So, a very common pattern with PHP scripts is that your directory that you wish to dump your files into once you're finished is made a variable at the top of the script. This is one of those things that's most likely to change if you were to take the script and put it somewhere else in some other thing, or, there are many reasons that you might want to take this code and put it somewhere else. If you take the target directory and you make it a variable at the top, it almost functions as a tiny little configuration file within the script. So if it's at the top, basically someone else knows where to look for all the options. So that's why this stuff is, that's why it's not like mixed in with the rest of the code. So, target directory uploads. Well, we need to open the PHP interpreter. Next, if we want to put things in a directory called uploads, we need a directory called uploads. So I add it in WinSCP. Any questions so far? Pretty straightforward. So the directory that I'd like to put things in, target directory, is equal to uploads. Now we start getting to some of the interesting things. You remember how we had the get and the post superglobals, which had all kinds of information about the received packets? Well, we have one more superglobal called files. Now note, is this file or files? Is it singular or plural? It's plural. This thing is an associative array with keys, the key values being the names of the files which were uploaded, and the values being another associative array with pieces of information about that file. So we are now dealing with nested data structures. I suppose it's arrow in PHP, isn't it? And it's square braces. Was it something I said? Something like this, right? So in fact, let's just take a look at the data. So, upload. There we go. All right. So, if I upload this image, this is what we get back. First, and remember in JSON, curly brace means associative array or dictionary. User file, name, pangolin.jpg, type, image, JPEG, temp name, temp, and then it's PHP, and then a scrambled name. Error 0, size, 267 kilobytes. If I were to allow the upload of a second file, user file A and user file B, just for example. All right, I need another animal.
Dragon.
Dragon, that's good enough. Cool, that's a good dragon. But is it active? It's JPEG. Lovely.
Did you know dragon is the official animal of Wales?
Yes. Yeah, I did know that actually. So, re-uploading, reloading, there we go. You see we have multiple files that we can select now. If this one is pangolin and that one is dragon. Oh,
It's going to be the last one.
yeah, because I did the IDs instead of the names. So it like overwrote. Okay. Try her again. There we go. User file A, pangolin.jpg. User file B, dragon.jpg without the E. So this is an associative array. The way that we get at the elements is by addressing them but using a string instead of numeric indexing. So, if I wanted, for example, user file A and the name of such, there you go. Oh, by the way, the resend data dialog, when you reload, will automatically it keeps the form data the same, right? And then you can just see how your PHP script changes. So it's a little more convenient than going back and re-entering the data each time. So there we go. There's the name of our first file. But you'll notice that the file itself, that is to say the file data, is not contained anywhere inside of the file's superglobal. So, what is it doing? Where is the data? In fact, in point of fact, the actual files that correspond to this data have been shuffled off into a temporary directory on the server. They are intact, they are whole, but they're off somewhere else waiting to be processed. The temp directory, the temporary directory value in the file superglobal. Oh, did I get it wrong? Don't need the JSON to code this anymore. We'll just keep that up so that we see what's going on. There we go. Gets me every time. It's not temporary, it's TMP name, temporary name. There. Temp slash, some scrambled name that's different each time. So, you guys remember me talking about the directory traversal attack last time? If the file name contains some nasty characters that allow you to go up directories, and then you just write that directly into your server, there's nothing preventing a malicious user from overwriting things like your index.html page, right? So this is why validation checks. Like, everything we've been talking about in this degree program or diploma program so far that has been, how we've been like hounding you about validation since Python, right? You might have been like, oh well, in Java it doesn't really matter that much, It begins to matter. When you're doing PHP, this stuff's no longer academic, right? Doing proper validation checks means protecting yourself against malicious people who will try to break your website and steal your data and to rip off your customers. So, good, anyway.
So,
Yeah.
do the teachers test for that by literally trying to mess up the code?
What do you mean?
Like entering like a full,
Oh,
by hacking it, essentially.
trying to hack your website?
Yeah. Is that how a teacher would grade it? Like how easily hackable your website is?
That would be cool. I don't know. This is my first time teaching the class. I don't know how like assignment 2 and up is gonna go, but I know on assignment 1 there was a line said, do not worry about validation. So on assignment 1, I, totally could just, well, like in theory, I guess you could, because like there's nowhere in assignment 1 are you like directly echoing user input, or any part of it. So, unless you did anyways, in which case I could hack you.
Well, unless the given HTML doesn't have proper validation checks.
Well, see, the HTML is never going to have sufficient validation checks anyways because it's client-side code, right? The validation, all of the weight of validation falls on the PHP because the client has no ability to change it. Validation on the client side is always good, but it's never sufficient. So basically the next few things we're going to talk about are various ways of validating that the file we received is the type of file that we wanted to receive. So in this particular case, we're looking for image files, so long as they're not AVIF. I've decided to have a grudge against AVIF.
Any particular reason why?
No. Yeah. It's apparently like better than PNG. It's like more higher. I don't know. It's like better than JPEG, but it beats PNG, something like like that. But anyway, it's the new file format. In 5 years, all files will be using AVIF, but you know, I'm still gonna have a grudge against it.
I just wish they called it Abby.
Yes.
I like Abby.
Okay. What's with all these file formats having the last letter F, which stands for format? It's redundant. It's like ATM machine.
Yeah.
The M stands for machine.
Just calling it.
Anyway.
There's enough.
Welcome
Calling
to
it an
episode,
18 machine, so.
I mean, you could call it an AT machine, but
welcome to episode 250 of Sir ranting about some random thing about code.
I mean, you should be used to it by now.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we're going to perform a number of validation checks. We are keeping one Boolean variable, setting it to 1 at the top. If any of the subsequent validation checks fail, we will set it to 0. And we will run through all of our validation checks sequentially. So, check number 1. Let's see if this is actually an image that was uploaded. It says it's an image, right? If you look at the file format, it says it's an image. But as we all know, you can apply any extension to anything regardless of the contents, right? So, if is set post submit isSet is a function that checks to see if this key exists in the dictionary. So what this is doing is it's checking to see that the post request was sent via form submission. You know, that's a sort of a secondary check. Get image size. So, get image size attempts to read the file specified in order to see if it contains information about how big it is. Normally this information is held in the file header in image file formats. Various information is included in such places, but image size is one of them. So basically, what this function is doing, it's attempting to open the file that the user submitted as an image file. If what it gets back is junk, then it returns a fail state. It returns false. So this is a clever way of checking to see if the thing is formatted as a file. If it's formatted as a file, you will find a file size, and that will be returned. But if you do not find a file, or if you do not find an image size, then it wasn't encoded as an image, was it? Right? So, if check is false, notice how strong my my check is. Then echo this isn't an image file at all.
Lots of sneakiness.
Hmm?
And you may have caught some sneakiness.
Sorry, just that
You
one.
may have caught some sneakiness.
Yes, precisely. This is a sneakiness check, absolutely. You rascal. We need that flag. And then at the end, after all of our checks, if flag do good things with file, else chastise user. Check to see if file contents are actually an image file. There we go. So, let's check to see if this works. First, we need a fake image, which is quite easy to come up with actually.
Make a text file, this is totally an image.
Exactly what I was thinking. We're gonna have to expose file extensions though. So open with Notepad. This is totally an image, I swear. Don't check that. There we go. Now, rename this to not suspicious image dot png. Yes. So if we open this with Notepad again, see, we've already fooled Windows. See, the file contents has not changed. Just by modifying the file extension, you're not encoding it as a PNG. Literally, all you're doing is changing the file name, right? Here's an interesting idea while we're here. Name Dragon Hacked. Open with Notepad. Alright, and just sort of, let's see what happens. Insert mode not working? My goodness. Hacked. 4, 5, 6. So JPEGs are not vulnerable to that type of modification. Anyway, I thought maybe we could do
Wait, sir.
You could probably totally do that with a bitmap though.
Oh, yeah.
Alright, anyway. So, let's upload our stuff. And let's try to upload a not suspicious image. This isn't an image file at all, you rascal. There you have it. So, next, let's check to see if the file has the correct extension. So, there are a couple of things we can do in this respect. If check works, then one of the pieces of information it returns is the quote-unquote MIME type of the file. MIME type just means like globally recognized internet type, official type. So, let's put this inside here. Actually, I don't know what happened. I kind of want to put everything in there. Now let's, so, if flag and we have more conditions. This is not appearing in here, but I'll explain why I'm doing this. So, if your file fails one validation check, do you need to know how many more validation checks it fails? No, you don't. Failing one check is good enough. You remember how you have lazy evaluation inside of if statements? Due to the construction here, if flag is false, the rest of that is not checked. And the if statement, well, obviously the if statement would never be entered, but this allows us to save a little bit of time and not make the further checks that we would otherwise be doing. So, good. So, we also need the file type. In this example, the file type is being registered right at the top of the file. So, image file type is equal to string to lower. Any idea what that does? Makes a string lowercase. Path info. Target file. And then we want path info file extension. We will of course also need the target file variable. So the target file, this is the file name and directory where we want to write the file once we've performed all of our checks. This is where on the server we want to save it permanently. Although it's been saved to a temporary directory while we're processing it, that temporary directory is cleared once we're finished with this PHP script. So we have to save it somewhere permanently if we want to keep it. So, the target directory will be the first thing to go there. And there's also there's a very useful function in PHP called base name. Base name, so something like that as a string. Base name extracts only the file name itself, and it disposes of the directory information. Make sense? So, base name of files, user file. There we go. And let's see the value of that image file type before we go any further. Oh, 925. Oh yeah, I suppose I do, don't I? There we go. Oh, yeah, okay, that's an associative array. I need, what is it? What does it mean? Name. Yeah. ENG. There we go. Now we can do a relatively simple check. If flag is still true, and image file type is equal to ENG, or expand this. JPEG, or the other JPEG, or GIF, or BMP. Does anybody know what BMP is? It's an older file format. It's a bitmap, that's right. Bitmaps are uncompressed image data.
Sir,
There you go. Add this, not. Yes.
suppose you have a scenario where you're accepting a bunch of files and you have a lot of extensions you can possibly use. It's kind of tedious, like going through if this or this or this, and then you have like images, videos, text files, and whatever that you can accept. So
You want it slightly nicer? Okay. We can do it slightly nicer.
in that scenario, it would be nice to know there's an easier way to do all of that and get all of the extensions.
Less than the real dude.
Actually, yeah, that would be nice.
GIF. you could just use, nah, no, this is correct. All right. Something like that, perhaps? Using loops. If you really wanted to, you could, like, a way that you would make this even nicer to work with for other people is you would externalize these strings as a file in the server, accepted types. You would just list out all the accepted types in a file. You would load that file inside of this PHP script and run through each one of them and check them. That way, if somebody wanted to add an accepted file extension, all they would have to do is add one to the end of a file rather than digging through code, which in theory could also be done like using like scripts, and like that makes it more Unix compatible, which is nice. Unix compatibility is nice. Question?
Doesn't how you have it implemented just not actually check the original file? You're checking it to the...
Oh, yeah, you're right. I made a mistake. Whoops. Okay.
Isn't that just guaranteed to...
Fail. It'll fail every time because accepted is an array. Yes. I wanted, what was it? File, image file type. Thank you. I guess, like, flag 2 is really unnecessary. Okay. Good. Wonderful. So, we could also bark at the user if not flag, then echo this isn't even an image file, CAD. So now, if we upload something that's not even an image file, like a not an image txt. This isn't an image file. Oh, well, it is also true that it isn't an image file. Oh, I know what I need to do. I need to take one of my image files and like call it something other than what it is. Rename incorrect extension dot I was gonna make a joke. Dot crap. There we go. Yes, I want the dot crap extension. There we go. We get the correct error. It is an image file, and it parses as an image file, but because it doesn't have the file extension, it's not in the approved list of file extensions, we get an error message. Make sense? So, a reasonably important check is to check to see if the file already exists. So, this is also protection against certain forms of directory traversal attack. So, the real power behind a directory traversal attack is if it overwrites a file that already exists in the file system. If it already exists in the file system, we can check to see if that's the case using the file exists function. So, check to see if file exists. If flag and file exists. I just want to call your attention for a moment to all of these different file functions that you have available with PHP. This is quite a lot more flexible than I'm currently letting on. File exists. And remember, we are checking to see if the file we're writing to currently exists. So we're not checking the temporary, checking the temporary directory, right? We're checking target file. So, if the file exists, echo, print the message, duplicate files not permitted. Normally, what's done with image files in particular on social media and other sites which accept quite a lot of them, they will store a lot of these things in, it's not like you have a different folder for every image file on a social media site, right? So in theory, you have to avoid the problem of name conflicts between the image files, right? What's normally done is a process known as hashing. Have you guys have heard of hashing before? A little bit?
We're not.
Yes, okay. So, very, very roughly speaking, what a hash is, a classical hash is you have a series of, you have like a space of available keys, right? Let's imagine it's like 0 through 10. And then you have a hash function which takes something like a file name and generates something, some value inside of the space of available keys. So, a.png might hash to 7, right? Then it occupies slot 7, right? They get more complicated than this, obviously, but this is generally the idea of hashing. The important thing to know about a hash function is that it's not random. It's like a non-random scrambling. You can think of it that way. So it has to be repeatable because you have to be able to get to the same. You have to get to the same hash in the hash table every time for the same data. But yeah. So they use complicated schemes to manage file names. For our purposes, we're just trying to write the file to the folder with none of this scrambling. So, but you could imagine if file exists, pick a slightly different file name, like append_1 or something like that, right? And repeat that until you find a free file name. Question?
Does that have to do, like, I know in like Java and stuff, there's like things called hash maps. Is that like relatable to that?
That's a rough description of the same process, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This hashing process is often in the back end behind things like dictionaries and associative arrays.
Sure.
But Java's hash map, if I'm remembering correctly, is roughly speaking the same functionality as the dictionary or the associative array.
Yeah.
So.
And
Yes.
people use that because it's like it processes faster, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Well, see, string comparison is notoriously slow, like just bad and slow, and
Yeah.
nobody should ever do it for any reason, if they can avoid it. For the amount of like times you would need to access something in an associative array, you know, often faster to just hash the string and then compare the integers that are resulting from that. Because integer comparison is
Faster.
like it's constant time, whereas string comparison depends on the length of the string. So,
Makes sense.
yeah, good. All right, duplicate files not permitted. Flag is set to false. There we go. Echo. Something went wrong because you are a founder. Duplicate files not permitted. Scallywag. There we go. All right. So, this one's a little less important for our purposes, but you can also limit the amount of the number of bytes that the file is. So, unfortunately, again, this does not prevent the server from downloading it, even if it's like 5 gigabytes. It's too late once it's hit this.
5 terabytes.
I think that at that point you're probably hitting like network infrastructure restrictions. Whatever the maximum, like post requests have a theoretically unlimited amount of memory that they can send. So, you know, I suppose you could send terabytes, but like there'll be internal like php.ini has a maximum file upload size parameter. So this is to some degree redundant if you've configured it properly, right? Do you guys remember php.ini from last time? Good. So, all right. Now we get to the bit where we actually put the file in the place where we want it. The command that we will use for this is move uploaded file. This is another one of these PHP functions which return false if they fail, probably primarily for the purpose of shoving them into if statements. So, we have echo, thank you for following the rules. Uploading file path. Move uploaded file. From is the location, the temporary location in the temporary directory that the thing is found in, and to is the permanent location that we set at the top. So the temporary location is files at user file A at temp here, I think it was temp here, temp name. I always get that wrong. Then the place we want to put it in is what do we call it? Target file. There we go. So if we get a negative result here, then then the file failed to upload. So we could say something like, unfortunately, due to circumstances beyond your control, the file upload failed. Sorry. Otherwise, echo congrats. File uploaded successfully. There we go. Thank you for following the rules. File uploading now. Congrats, file uploaded successfully. If we take a look at WinSCP and take a look in the uploads folder, we have our JPEG. And if we really wanted to, we could do something like this. Oh, you don't need that. Well, you do, don't you? I will escape them.
You forgot to close it.
Did I? Oh, yeah. Thank you. You're keeping me on the straight and narrow. Oh, whoops. Didn't want that uploads. Go. Oh. Duplicate files not permitted, scallywag. Oh yeah, okay, so you gotta delete this now. There we go.
It worked.
And as you can see, the image file displays. It's okay. Ultra applause. So, please note that this image file is not being read from my local machine. This is being read from the CS Unix folder. If anybody were to visit that URL, well, actually, you would,
We can upload
you can upload what you want, yeah. But you wouldn't see my dragon because the printing of it is exclusive to the output of my PHP, running of the PHP script. So you wouldn't see my dragon, but you'd be able to see whatever image file you uploaded. Make sense? Hmm?
It's like per bear line.
It definitely seems to be pretty medieval, eh? It's got like eyes in its wings.
Lots of medieval art is often like, trying to describe a creature they've never seen before by
Yeah.
relating it to creatures they have seen before.
Yes.
And that resulted in a lot of chimeras.
Yes. Well, you know Bowser. You know what his face is? Like what animal it's based on?
He's a turtle dragon.
He's a turtle, but he's got the face of an ox.
Ox.
An ox specifically, yeah. And there's some Mario Deep lore for you.
Well,
Um,
I'm pretty sure that's more so Shinto mythology than it is Mario lore.
If it's in a Mario game, it's Mario lore, come on. Alright, so, any questions about that? We got file uploading working.
Can you see the code?
Yes, go, there you go. Do you need
Yeah.
this part?
Yep.
Good. Any questions? Pretty straightforward? Everybody's kind of like, this is my last class before the break, or this is my second last class before the break, or in some cases, I'm sure, this is my fourth last class before the break. Because, you know, they've scheduled everything in the evenings.
Yeah.
That's the worst.
How many classes do you have to go before the break? One? Is there a test?
I will
Zero?
be skipping.
I have a net assignment due on Sunday, but I'm also traveling to Ottawa. So that's fun.
Well, I hope you're not, don't drive in code, okay?
Sir, that is exactly what Scott Cawthon did when he was making FNAF.
Terrible.
I know, and he was driving with his child as well.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I
All right.
drink.
I mean, how hard could that one be to code?
I actually make crawl,
Um,
no?
You know?
He was also
Literally
modeling.
like night crawl.
Oh, okay,
Literally
yeah,
Jake
no.
Gyllenhaal.
Yeah.
You should, like, okay, so like my threshold is like, well, if the program's easy, but if it's 3D modeling, no, you shouldn't be driving. Like, oh,
Yeah.
anyway. So, good. Good. So let me just see if there's anything I forgot to mention. Yep. Okay. Let's talk about post-processing for a moment. So, the validation checks that we performed, those were pre-processing. The upload process itself, although very short, that was the processing. You can also perform post-processing steps. So, server space is expensive. It costs money. It's not that any one image costs you a lot to store on a server. It's more like multiply that by the number of your users, right? It costs money to store stuff on a server. So, if the file is yours now, you can compress it as much as you like, right? Compressing the file, you know, not even necessarily zip, there are lots of different compression formats. It takes time to do. It also slows down retrieval, right? Because if it's been zipped up, then it has to be unzipped or decompressed before it's sent back out to the user. So it slows that process down somewhat. But what you get from that is more server space. Often these compression formats are quite good, especially on data which is like, in general, not really compressed in the first place, like text data or uncompressed file formats. Yes. So, once again, validation checks on the client side are always useful, but are not sufficient because the client has control of what executes on the client side. The server we have control over, so all of our checks are good. Some of the types of checking that you should do: file type validation, which we've already seen. Attackers can upload malicious files or scripts under a different extension, validate file types against a wide list of allowed formats. It's important not to just check the file extension, but also to check the file contents to make sure it matches the extension. File size limit, the limit of the files uploaded. So if you limit the size of the files being uploaded to the server, this helps prevent overloading the server. Is that a fan in this room?
It's like a work.
Yes.
It's just sort of
Ventilation.
I'm not an expert, but I think that thing needs maintenance. Sanitization and escaping. So you have to sanitize your file name to make sure it doesn't contain directory attacks. Simply sanitizing for, disallowed character combinations is usually sufficient. You don't want to just blanket prevent period because it's used in file extensions. But there's really no reason for the user to upload a file that contains a directory in the file name at all. So you could just filter out, take the base name only as your filtering step. That's one thing you could do. File overwriting. You don't want users overwriting files that already exist, particularly in combination with a directory traversal attack. But just in general, store uploaded files in a separate directory with restricted permissions. This kind of gets a little bit more into the Linux, Unix side of things. You need to know a little bit about how the permission system works. So we're not really going to worry too much about that, but it is absolutely possible to, for example, ensure that the files didn't come with executable permissions and that they never get them. Make sure that files can be read but not written, or maybe restrict a thing that you can. Okay. Very briefly. So, in the Unix file permission system, right? You've got user, and you've got group, and then you've got, let's just do user and group for now. Each file has 3 types of permissions: read, write, and execute. It is possible to say, let's say I had 2 groups, group, user, and group admin, right? Group user might have no permissions, whereas group admin has read and write permissions, but executable permissions are left off. So you can actually, in the Unix file system, prevent people who are not in the right user group from even reading a file, reading the contents of a file, which of course is useful. So, any questions? No? Okay. So, enabling users to upload files enhances the functionality and interactivity of web pages. By following best practices and avoiding potential security threats, you can implement file uploads functionality securely. Remember to validate, sanitize, etc.
I'm
Yes?
guessing this is how when you go to those websites that convert files, this is like how they generally do it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so if you wanted to write like a file converter script, in here, like when you upload your file to a to a permanent directory, what you would have on the server is some sort of program, probably a bash program if it's a Unix or a, like Apache server. You would have some program that performs like image file conversion, which you could call image file conversion bash. Super user, there we go. So, image magic, there we go. Convert, there we go. There are tools for this. And then bash commands from PHP, shell exec. So, execute command via shell and return complete output as a string. So basically, you install one of those programs on the server to convert the file. You create the command to convert the file just by doing simple string insertion type thing, assuming that the string itself, the file name, has been sanitized and doesn't contain anything bad. Because if directory traversal is bad, and if SQL injection attacks are bad, and if XSS attacks are bad, if they manage to get at bash, you're just done.
Yeah.
They will kill you, they will find your family, and they will execute them in front of you. That's how bad it is, all right?
Yeah.
So sanitize everything, but especially if you're actually executing it in the bloody shell.
Yeah.
But so you just execute the shell command using shell exec, and whatever return information you need. Usually the return information is like, did this work,
Yeah.
right? And if it worked, then you just create a page with a download link for the image file that you made.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. It's actually not that bad a process.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that difficult,
Yeah. It's like any Linux person is like, you can't do that yourself.
Yeah.
You can't run a bash command yourself. But yeah, like I think you will find that if you take a look at like a lot of popular websites, I'd be curious to see how many of them are just like web application exposures of bash commands.
Probably,
Yeah. But yeah. Excellent question. Thank you for the question. Any other questions? I kind of want to try shell exec now.
yeah. I'm down to see.
What's something we could do? Echo shell exec ls. That'll do. Put a break in there. There you go. There's your ls output. same as if I had run that in PuTTY.
Yeah.
Index, uploads, and the uploads folder. Although in like an actual shell, uploads would be like highlighted blue because it's a directory.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you can just execute general shell commands from PHP, which, you know, if you know enough bash, I'm sure that some of the upcoming bash commands, or some of the upcoming file operations are probably like also easily done by bash commands, like, because you all know what assignment 2 is going to be, right?
100%, sir.
Yeah, it's going to be this. It's going to be file working with files. Absolutely, no question, right? Good. All right. So we got one more section to talk about, and then I think we'll be done. You'll notice working with files is actually the. You'll notice that week 7 is like just the midterm. So that's when we get back from the break, we will have a midterm, and the class material is studying for it. So we'll have a review session. Okay? Question?
Will there be like a review thing uploaded on Canvas? Or
Well, I don't see anything on Canvas currently, and everything's like synced up. So if I put anything up, it's going to be like through an announcement, because you can post an announcement to one section, but you can't, like, if I upload stuff to the modules, I'm basically just vandalizing it for the other sections.
Yeah.
So yeah, any data will be coming through the announcements feed.
Okay.
Sorry, say again.
Our .NET professor gave us some practice questions.
On PHP.
He also teaches.
This is really good. This is just 3 practice questions.
You need this.
I mean, if you want to come, we have it back.
We can send you pictures.
Yeah, can you send me? I see no reason not to put that up, except for the fact that it's in all caps. Yeah, I guess so. Thank you. Yep. Otherwise, for study material over the break, 100% complete the exercises from previous weeks. And
You already did that.
then you should be reasonably well prepared.
I'm saying it.
Okay. I'll bug Steve, see if he has any other study materials. Okay. Let's talk one-page apps. Don't worry, this is appropriate for the last 10 minutes of class. There we go. So, where's my on? So, this is a topic we've already touched upon. We've sort of, like most of the examples we've done in class, we've opened a PHP tag at the top, closed it at the bottom, and everything in between has been PHP script, and we haven't really been mixing HTML in all that much. A little bit at the beginning to show you that it's possible, but other than that, we've been scripting mainly, right? So, do you guys remember that example that we did with the PHP if statement and like we turn off the interpreter inside of if cases, and it actually like works to print one or the other thing in HTML. And remember how clunky that was? And like difficult to read? Well, we have this thing called MVC architecture. And the problem with that earlier example is that the model and the view were being mixed in too much, right? That's what made it difficult to read. It's difficult enough to read one programming language at a time, let alone trying to read like 3 at a time, right? So, this example more follows the MVC style. We have a big old PHP block right at the top of our file, and then we get into our HTML. Although the HTML and the PHP are still residing in the same file, you'll see that this file is wildly different from the last time I looked at it. All right, I'm looking at this stuff, all right? Like this. This is a lot clearer and easier to interpret in the context of an HTML tag. Remember that question mark equals is the same as saying PHP echo, right? So it's the shorthand. So essentially what we can do is we can use our PHP to load data from files, take the results from post requests, all of that, gather up our data, right? And then insert that data at the correct points inside of the HTML in a reasonable and easy to read fashion. We can just insert values from PHP variables, right? And this works. Notice that this is even done inside of quotation marks. The thing that makes this file somewhat easier to read than the last is that we try to minimize the amount of mixing in of PHP that we do with the HTML. So, yeah. Okay. Right. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say about MVC architecture. Any objections to ending class a little early, right before the long week of the week break?
Did you forget the applicant insertions?
I did actually, yeah. Okay. Can you stop recording?